Hey everyone, Aaron here from Rudy Visuals. Great to see you all again today. And in this video, we're reviewing this lens kit from Sirui, featuring the 16mm and a 75mm auto-focusing prime lens from their Sniper lineup for Sony E-mount. And these lenses are super cheap. You can get them right now for around $320 or in a set of two for around $640. But does cheap mean good, bad? Well, we're gonna find out today. These lenses were sent to us by Sirui to review and keep, but we haven't been told to say anything specific. Sirui don't get to see this before we publish it. And as always, all thoughts and opinions are fully independent, but a big thank you to Sirui for making this video possible. And like always, we try not to review lenses anymore where they focus on things like test charts and graphs, but instead on real world usage, as we believe this is the best way to really test lenses and give you the best information. But be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you like this video and want to see more. So the Sniper series are APS-C lenses, and you can also get these in 23, 33 and 56mm variants, which came out last year, I believe. So these newer 16 and 75 versions are a way to complement the set. With these being APS-C lenses, do keep in mind that the 16mm is more like a 24mm on a full frame equivalent camera, and the 75 is closer to a 112.5mm when you factor in the 1.5 times crop factor on Sony APS-C cameras. We don't actually currently own a Sony APS-C camera, and instead tested these lenses on our Sony a7 IV with the crop sensor mode activated. And as far as I can see, these lenses are very similar to the Nightwalker Cine lenses that we previously reviewed, but with the added benefit of having autofocus. And I have to admit that the set of the 16 and 75mm is a really nice duo to shoot with, because you have that nice mix of an ultra wide and a much tighter perspective, which really complement each other really well if you're in a shoot and want to get a good variety of shots. I personally really enjoyed the 75mm lens slightly more as a portrait guy myself, but the 16mm is obviously a really useful focal point as well. Now, of course, the biggest selling point of these lenses is, of course, that wide aperture of f1.2, considering how cheap these lenses are. Typically, f1.2 is only found on premium and flagship lenses, or on cheaper lenses that are manual focus only. So to find this aperture on a prime autofocus lens is definitely something that we can applaud Sirui for. It is actually really impressive they've been able to fit all of that into what is a pretty compact package. Of course, having a max aperture of f1.2 means that these are naturally great for low light scenarios. We were in London recently and took a bunch of photos, and at night with only like ambient lights from street lamps and store signs, etc. And we were able to get really usable shots at relatively low ISOs. The big caveat here is that at f1.2, the image quality is quite soft. There is definitely a lack of sharpness and contrast at f1.2. Now, if we do check out these quick comparison shots, you will see that the contrast and sharpness greatly improves if you step down both lenses to around f2.8 to f4 for best results. Now, Sirui does gear their lenses more towards video for budget-minded filmmakers, especially if you look at their manual focus and anamorphic lenses, which are well known for not being like these super tack sharp lenses. They aim for that soft kind of filmic look. So the image is far from perfect, but like those lenses, the Sniper ones are going for that same look, but with the added benefit of having autofocus. So it is important to have that in mind if you're considering these lenses. You're not going to get clinically razor sharp image quality. It's up to you whether that's something you actually want or don't want. Personally, I think this can add a very nice style to more creative style videos. Now, the 16mm lens does have some very noticeable distortion and vignetting wide open, as well as some chromatic aberrations as well. Though I would not say that it's so much that it ruins an image or is overly distracting. You could make the argument that this does add to the character of this lens, but again, all of these improved when stepping down the aperture. It also created some not so attractive flaring when shooting against a bright light source. Now, the 75mm lens to me was the slightly more impressive lens from an optical performance point of view. While I did find the effective 112mm focal length to be very tight in some scenarios, but as a portrait lens, this thing does really shine. The sharpness is actually pretty decent at around f1.8 to f2.8 while maintaining very nice subject and background separation. separation. It still had a little problem with vignetting and color fringing wide open, but again, all of these things improved as you step down. As you can see, the autofocus elements and bokeh were really smooth, and the compression you get at this focal range made it a very flattering lens for shooting people. The bokeh balls are also nice and circular, going more lemon shaped towards the edges. To be honest, the bokeh from this 16mm lens is also quite nice though, quite a bit more unique looking. The autofocus elements are more tear-shaped and can look quite chaotic looking. I think some people will either love this or they'll probably hate it, but I can also see that it's going for that kind of vintage look that you might get from vintage lenses. I quite like the fact that both lenses were mostly very consistent as well in terms of like the color rendition and the tone, so you can get a very uniform look when shooting with both of these lenses. They both do look quite soft and have this kind of like glowy look to the tone, and the image is fairly flat, I'd say, but that's not necessarily a bad thing for video work if you're going to be, you know, grading the video in post anyway. Another consideration for filmmakers is of course focus breathing, and I'm actually happy to see that the focus breathing on both the 75mm lens and the 16mm lens is actually pretty good. I have seen in other reviews where it hasn't been as good and it's a lot more pronounced, especially on the 75mm lens, but from what I can see, it looks absolutely fine to me. It's not distracting in any way whatsoever. Now, focusing on both of these lenses sadly is where I would say there is some weakness, which is a bit disappointing considering how the autofocus is one of the main selling points of these lenses. Now, I found that both lenses worked really well with Sony's IAF and face detect when there is a clear face in the frame that wasn't moving around too much. But in situations where that's not the case, they both hunted quite a lot a bit and struggled to lock onto faster moving subjects. I have heard that it used to be quite bad on the 23, 33 and 56mm lenses as well, but those did improve over time with firmware updates, so I'm hoping that the autofocus on these lenses can also be improved in the future. Now, to really push these lenses, we got some shots at the Santa Fun Run, and for the most part, the 16mm lens fared pretty well, but this 75 did feel very slow and unresponsive, so I think it's best to use these lenses for slower subjects, and if you were planning to shoot faster ones, then my personal recommendation is to look elsewhere. The actual build quality of the lenses is actually pretty nice, as well as the design considering how sort of cheap they are. They are both around the same weight, roughly around the 400 gram mark, though the 16mm has a filter size of 58mm and the 75mm lens has a filter size of 67, so it is a little bit annoying that you'll need to have different size ND filters if you plan on shooting with them together. The 75mm lens is a little bit wider and a little bit heavier, but considering how much more glass there is in this one, I can probably forgive that. These are the carbon fiber versions, but you can get them in different colors if that's your thing. Now, I wouldn't say they feel super premium or anything like that, probably on par with Sony's budget range. But they are quite nice and lightweight, they feel robust enough for daily shooting, and they're very compact. The design is as simple as you can get, with just a focus ring which focus throws to 360 degrees, and both lenses come with these lens hoods. A minor gripe that I found with a lot of Sirui lenses is that they don't really feel like they really snap on properly. They just doesn't quite click in a very satisfying way. I know I am nitpicking here, but overall it's not terrible. It just doesn't always feel like it's entirely there. So with all that being said, are these lenses actually worth the cheap entry price? And I would say if you look at the market now currently, there aren't a whole bunch of autofocusing lenses that offer an f1.2 aperture, that offer a series of lenses that all complement each other and made with budget video creators and filmmakers in mind. Now, there are a few other budget offerings from the likes of Viltrox. There's some from Yongnuo and Samyang that offer prime lenses, and I'd say those lenses are definitely worth a look as well. If you're not looking to spend too much money, we have had experience with the Viltrox lenses and they're pretty decent for the price. With the Sirui, you have to consider the type of image quality that you want, but I do think that these Sirui lenses do have a market for sure. They offer something a little bit different and would be well worth considering for filmmakers shooting more creative style videos, but on a budget. I would just again note some of the issues with the autofocusing for those of you who are looking to shoot faster moving subjects. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. A big thank you to Sirui once again for sending these lenses to us and making this video possible. If you have any questions about these lenses, let us know down there in the comments section below. And if you found this video helpful, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification if you want to support the channel going forward. You can also follow us on socials down here. And as always, I'll see you on the next video. Peace.